Great. Well, good morning, all, and I hope it's not too terribly hot for you folks back east. I keep seeing all these things about the word heat domes and record highs and all that. So appreciate. Well, I guess it's a nice day to be inside and do this and sit in the air conditioning instead of being
Yes.
out there. So for this week, kind of a hodgepodge of movies. It's interesting. Sometimes I get these on eBay, and somebody will post a listing for, say Disneyland 1962, and you bid against other people that want to buy a bunch of Disneyland movies, and sometimes people have bigger pockets than I do. Well, every now and then I just go off and try a weird bet on something, and every now and then it works off. Like the movies we did about World War II newsreels a week or two ago. I mentioned a woman said her dad had died. She wanted to get rid of the movies. Did anybody want it for postage? And I figured, yeah, for 25 bucks or so, how wrong could I go? Well, about a week, 10 days ago, somebody put a thing on eBay, and it was 15 reels, 8mm film, and he wasn't sure if they were exposed or not, but he wanted $45 for them. And more than anything else, I just said, I'll mark it as an auction to watch, just to see how high it goes. So he sends me a note the next day. How would you like to buy it for $40? So I said, oh, for $40 for 15 reels of film, and they looked exposed in the picture. I said, I could probably resell them to somebody for $5 a piece, so I can't do too bad. So I send them the 40 bucks, and I get my 15 reels of film. And there's a couple of them that are scribbled on with some writing I can't even read. But I popped the first one into the scanner, and there I am looking at Disneyland in 1959. So I said, well, that was a real nice surprise. So I take out the next one, and there's more of Disneyland in 1959. And then we get Disneyland in 1962. We get the LA County Fair. Out of the 15 reels, I think I found 8 of them of things that were of interest. There were 3 of them for people that the guy eventually found his name in one of the boxes, a German name, and he liked to go to a German beer hall and big ass party every year up in Sierra Madre. So there's reels after reels of people lifting beer steins and yelling, probably Proust something to the crowd. But I was able to restore a couple of them today, so we're going to be going back to Disneyland in 1959, and there's some really interesting things that show up. We're going to see the Disneyland Heliport, which it was there for a few years until there was a fatal accident and they closed it down. Really crazy things like a marionette show on the steps of City Hall, which I've never seen or heard of before, and just some other interesting odds and ends. Now, I didn't get to restore them all during the week. I mentioned at the very beginning, I bought a new computer. And one of the way, and just go through the chronology again, restoring these, take them out, chemically clean them, with a solution and pads, take the worst grunt off, scan it, and then it goes through a restoration process. On my old computer, I had a desktop here I was doing it on. It would take an hour or so, an hour and 15 minutes or so to do a 3-minute reel. That desktop one day died. It just decided it would turn on, but the mouse wouldn't work, the keyboard wouldn't work, none of the USB ports would work, which was really tough to debug a computer. So I put it on an old laptop, but it was taking an hour and 45 minutes or so to do it. So I finally went off and bought a new computer and found out the software doesn't work on the new computer. So to make a long story short, I eventually figured out how to do it. And now it takes about 15 minutes to do what the old laptop was taking an hour and 45 minutes to do. So I finally cracked that nut, and it's very gratifying because sometimes you'll do one of these things and go, oh, the parameters weren't quite right. I need to adjust it. And every minor tweak you meant was another hour and 45 minutes. Now, if I make a tweak, it's another 15 minutes I can live with. But I also had, let me just the share screen here.
So you had to buy all new. You had to buy all new software then.
No, that's the trouble. The guys that wrote this software basically got out of the business and they don't want to do it anymore. So and it was all written in French. So not to make it hard, but it was a computer language I didn't know with a source French language I didn't know. for something that was written for Windows 98, but I got it to work. So, but it was just it basically they had done an automated process that did 3 steps in a row, and the program was breaking when it was hand step 1 off to step 2, and then step 2 to step 3. So now I figured out how to run step 1, manually run step 2, manually run step 3, and it works. So, but let me just share screen here. So this is my excuse and why I didn't finish this all the editing I was going to do. This was my morning yesterday. So when I went out yesterday on patrol, we were saying, oh, it's going to be hot. It's going to be 98 degrees, and so I hope it's going to be a quiet day. Got in the car, signed on with dispatch, and as soon as I signed on, they said, can you go relieve a unit at so and such address? And I said to my partner, I said, oh, I wonder what we're relieving them for. What was a bomb? And somebody, yeah, it was very interesting. Somebody they called in and said there was a bomb between a credit union and a factory. And when the first officers got there, they said, oh yeah, it looks like it could be. Got pipes, wires, all sorts of things. When the bomb squad got there, they said, oh crap, there was a bomb in Florida 2 weeks ago that was very sophisticated, which basically uses 2 types of chemicals that are safe together or safe apart, but when you merge them together, they become very explosive. And whoever was working on that bomb in Florida didn't take it seriously. It blew up and killed people. So whoever made this fake device copied it off the one there in Florida. So when the bomb squad got there, they was like, okay, let's evacuate the entire block, which was right next to the federal courthouse or the county courthouse. I mean, it was great fun evacuating all that and everything. And now they had to bring robots in to deal with it and everything. So we were out in the middle of the street for about a little over 4 hours yesterday, going, that way. And luckily, most people were really, really decent. It's probably somebody I have to get to my office and go, well, it's closed because, and they, well, I need to get there. I got an important meeting. Because it's closed because of a bomb. I think I'll go home. So, what was really, really scary though was just venting for a second. They, when they were getting ready to work on this thing, just in case the worst happened, they called in the fire department, and they were coming down the road, 2 fire trucks and an ambulance, lights, sirens, air horns. They get to the street, right where those bomb squad cars were. They start trying to cross the street. The 2 cars go right in front of them. I mean, as close to me as the monitor sort of thing. And I keep thinking, God, it could be somebody's mother lying there grasping her chest on the kitchen floor, and these people, oh, I have to go, the fire's got to wait. So really, just real frustrating. So anyway, I eventually got home. I was too damn hot. I sat here in front of the air conditioner and didn't do my work. So let me just get what I needed to get here. And we're going to go to Disneyland in 1959. Which, for folks that may recall, 59 was a huge year for Disneyland. They did a tremendous expansion of the park, and this brought in things like the Matterhorn bobsled ride, the just these are all in different folders. Okay. Brought in the Matterhorn and the bobsleds, brought in the submarines, brought in a whole bunch of things, to the point where Disney themselves made a movie called, or actually it was a TV special sponsored by Kodak, called Disneyland 59. And in this particular one, let me cue it up here. Okay, of course it sticks it behind the window that I wanted to be under. 1 second here.
Where'd they have the extra land to expand to? Because normally that was a pretty crowded area.
Yeah, this is a good question, Earth. This was actually all inside the berm, the area surrounded by the train track. When he bought the park, he had a certain amount of land. It was basically a big square of orchards, orange orchards. But he put the berm in there, and it's sort of triangular in the original shape. And then the train tracks raised up to keep you from seeing the outside world, the parking lot. So when he opened up the park, he didn't have money to do everything he wanted. So there was a Skyway ride, and it had a big pile of dirt. All the dirt they had dug out and piled up from building other buildings was in a big pile in the middle of it, and it was called Holiday Hill or something like that. And it had a tower on it for the Skyway, and you could take trails up and picnic on Holiday Hill. Well, he then tore down Holiday Hill and put the Matterhorn where that was. There was another ride that didn't last very long called the Viewliner, a futuristic train that came out. That's where the monorail and the submarine could go. So it was moving around. Then in later years, when we got to things like the Haunted Mansion and that, the front of the ride is inside the berm, but then you go down a tunnel underneath the train tracks, and everything is out on the outside of the berm. So it's a real interesting bit of showmanship. So let me share this screen here.
Bill, wasn't the Holiday Hill the dirt from the Rivers of America and the Jungle Cruise when they dug those?
Yeah, that's where they dug
Yeah.
everything up and piled it because it was cheaper to pile it there than haul it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me share this here. So we're going to start at Disneyland in 1959. Bouncing around a little bit as we drive into the parking lot, but you can see, actually, let me just reverse this real quick. It's all sorts of things that I'm going to do and stop here, pause as we go along. So see how well it shows here. See, there's some tents over there. This was another area that was there for a short period of time. This was a picnic area that you could go in, and your company could rent a picnic grounds at the park. It has its own separate entrance, and you'd go in, and the Disneyland cast members would be there to help you with sack races and that sort of thing. And then you would go in and see the Mickey Mouse Club Circus, and go off on your day. But it had a softball field and the other sort of stuff that you would basically associate with a picnic. So just a real quick glimpse of the that now gone entrance to the park. And now we're walking on in to see the Main Street. Again, if you go there today, they had these kiosks all around, these little souvenir shops. There was one on either side of the park. Also information. One of the what they call plaids, the tour guides. That she's giving the guided tour of the park. And there's the brand new Matterhorn. We're replacing the giant pile of dirt Holiday Mound. And it's interesting. This was again a bunch of years later. Well, some of these vehicles aren't used on Main Street anymore because of the crowds. But most of this wouldn't have changed that much today. The Candy Palace is still there. Castle in John Hench's color palette, which I like much more than what they've done with it now. But there's our brand new Matterhorn. We're riding down Main Street on the streetcar, and here comes a marching band. Going into Adventureland, no tiki birds at this point. This is real interesting. See the woman there? There's a set of rocks, stepping stones, and it was a shortcut for employees or cast members to be exact. If you were trying to get from Adventureland over back to your store on the other side of Main Street, there were these stepping stones that you could walk through. They're not used anymore, but you can imagine the people come walk here on the Jungle Cruise, and here's this woman walking through, across the water there. So it's really funny, the things that pop up you don't expect. I mean, I knew about those stones, but that's the first thing I've ever seen of somebody actually using them. This was before they redid the Jungle Cruise, so that the ruins were much different. They really expanded them when they redid the Jungle Cruise years later. I think this was before the Lost Safari was added. And those lucky people experiencing the backside of water. This film, by the way, I don't know if the guy had an electric eye on it or not, but boy, it had trouble. So lots of lights fixtures that had to be done. Shops in Adventureland. Just kind of neat the little details they got. Now the Columbia is another new addition to the park. No Big Thunder Mountain behind it, so that whole area's changed.
That boat's so big, you wonder how they got it in there.
Built it there. What they did on things like this was they built the hull at a shipyard and they brought it in by truck and then lifted it into the park on a crane and took it over and put it in the dry dock. And then they assembled the top features there on site. So the Mark Twain, for example, the hull was built in a shipyard in Long Beach, and the superstructure was all built on a soundstage in Burbank. Taken apart, you know, I imagine, you know, insert cabin number 1 into cabin number 2, but they put it all back together and assembled it on site there at Disneyland.
Are they running on a track?
Yes, they are. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't realize it, but they are running on a track. The smaller boats, like the keel boats and rafts, are not on a track. These are. I was looking at these and wondering how many times that Mark Twain has gone around that island. Just think about it. In you know, all the years the park's been open, that's got to be a lot of trips around.
How steady was this originally? It looks really smooth now.
It was not steady at all. Good question. That's why the stabilization software makes a huge difference. It was really jittering all over. By the way, when the Mark Twain, at certain points in its career, was bedecked with all these flags, I really appreciate the look. I mean, it's colorful, it's bright, it's patriotic, and all. They don't seem to do that as much these days, but again, I was glad to find these. Yeah, the software does a really. Matter of fact, when we get to another film later, I can show you one real clip of what they looked like originally. The colors were really, really off on these things. Again, oh, here, so now we're at Christmas 1959, and look at the price, 25 cents. And this is, I believe, the Catella Gate coming in. It was a rarely used gate. It was mostly used for overflow parking. So you had the main gate on Harbor Gate, and then this overflow one. But 25 cents, and what is it now? $30 or something a part?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, it used to be 25 cents right up until Michael Eisner took over, and then it slowly started to climb. But it was 25 cents or 50 cents for years.
Now this
You know, they own the property.
yeah, but now they got to pay for that big garage. Now this was interesting. There's a guy standing here, and if you had, you can tell the people are hacked now because it won't hurt anything. But if you came in back at that point in time and said, I need handicap parking, they took a special piece of paper, which was red on one side and white on the other, and they would stick it under your windshield wiper. And when you got down here, if this guy saw the red paper, he would, you know, have you come up, he'd look to make sure it was the special paper, because if you just stuck red paper, anybody could do it, but you had to have special red, white paper. Then they would let you park up here up front, and you can see how close you were to the front gate. But since they don't do that anymore, now I can tell you. So we're gonna go inside. I hope everybody has brought money with them because we're gonna have to buy tickets, right? It's gonna be an expensive day as we go in the gate. We'll see how expensive here. So just pause it for a second. General admission for an adult, $1.25. You know, today, you know, of course, then you had to have ticket books. Because there were a couple things you could do for free, but $1.25 to get in, and if you got the Big Ten ticket book, adults were $3.50, and you got 10 rides. So today it's only what, $130 or so. There is another sign coming up to show that this was special holiday admission prices. So I have no idea what the normal prices were, but, boy, I think if I was there, I'd go for the 15, Jumbo 15 myself, so. So if everybody gets your tickets, we'll head on inside. Our floral Mickey.
Bill, Kathy said she had trouble getting on because the code didn't work.
Oh, I did let her on. She should be
Yeah.
here.
Well, no, that's after I sent her link, but she said the actual, passcode thing, it didn't work.
Yeah, thanks. Cody had trouble with it too, so, don't know if it works for some and not for others. So this was a nice surprise.
The code in that email works, but the one
Sure.
on World's Fair Photos does not.
Oh, it does not. Okay, I
It's
thank
really
you.
short.
Try that myself. I don't know what I did there. So again, I love this sign, the classic sign. The Christmas parade today is at 2 p.m. And we're open from 10 to 10, and we have special winter rates in play. So this was not, although it says Christmas parade today, this wasn't. That's basically the Christmas season parade, because this film was developed on December 24th, 1959. I got a kick out of this little cart here. I'd never seen this before. And here's the heliport. For people unfamiliar with it, the Los Angeles Airways ran scheduled helicopter service between Los Angeles International Airport and Disneyland. And they ran about once an hour for most of the day that Disneyland was open. And it was a great service if you were wealthy. And actually, again, you look at the price of the ticket today, it seems like nothing, but again, by comparison. But unfortunately, the helicopter had a fatal crash. I think it was over Cerritos, and it was decided to discontinue the helicopter service. So this is the only movie that I've seen pop up with the scenes of the heliport. All the great attraction posters there. And now I don't know what they were doing over here at City Hall, but these are the flight attendants from the helicopter service. And you can see how things have changed, because when would you think the last time might be that somebody went to Disneyland wearing a mink skull? So, and now this is on the steps of Main Street, City Hall on Main Street, a marionette show. Just really surprised to see this. I have no idea what the reason they set up the stage they were doing it. The rental strollers have changed just a little. And he's going to end, and we're going to come back for a second visit over the holiday season. First one, so good. Now look at the trees blowing around in this. If you're not from the Southern California area, you will not know what a Santa Ana wind is. If you are from this area, you'll know very, very well. When I first moved out here, I had no idea what they were. Well, they blow out of the desert, and they blow like mad. So we'll see more of it when we get to the Christmas tree. But this is a section of the park. I mean, we have Tomorrowland, we have Frontierland, we also have Kennel Land. So Kennel Ration was the official sponsor of the kennel at Walt Disney Disneyland. And for 25 cents, you could bring your dog into the pet motel, and it would go into an air-conditioned cage. You could come out and walk it, but it would also include a can of kennel ration food that they would feed to your dog. So it was obviously a popular spot. At times it would hit capacity and say, "We're sorry, we can let you into the park, but we just can't take care of your dog." It went through a series of 4 different owners as Kennel Ration stopped their sponsorship, and Purina Dog Chow took over theirs. In about 2000, they stopped including free dog food. They were having problems that as they went to feed some of the dogs, the workers were getting bit. And they decided that if you want to bring your dog in, if you want to come over here to the kennel, we'll let you feed your dog, but we're not going to feed dogs anymore. And then it was open there until COVID hit. When the park reopened after COVID, they decided not to offer dog facilities anymore. But I do remember when I worked there, this was right up there. It was to the right-hand side of the main gate. And it was pretty colorful little signage and everything. And here comes our monorail. Off we go through the front gate. Disneyland Santa Fe Railroad. And this was interesting. I looked at this and said, I wonder why the flag was at half mast. And it's interesting what you can find out with the internet. And this was done by order of President Eisenhower. And they decided that the last known soldier who had fought in the Civil War had died, and they decided that they would fly all the flags across the United States for at half mast until his funeral, in order to honor the people that fought on both sides. And this guy's name was Walter Williams, and he had been celebrated for being a Confederate soldier, and they figured he was 117 years old, which got my eyes raised. Well, I guess in the days before the internet, people didn't have the same access to research. But as soon as they announced this, the Associated Press went off on a search to try to verify this, and they said that as far as they could tell, during the day of the Civil War, Walter Williams was 5 years old, that he wasn't 117 when he died. He was more like only 102. But they had announced this whole big thing, and then Associated Press came up and debunked the fact that he wasn't a soldier, and they decided that they would just let the flags fly at half-mast to honor them all anyway. Where he's buried, and I looked it up, it came up in a story, where he's buried, there's still a monument that they still swear he was 117 years old, last Confederate soldier. But like I said, I guess it's one of those things, you start telling a story, and after a while the story sticks. But he was not, from my understanding, he was not a Civil War soldier. Now look at the tree. Look at the winds blowing that tree. If you're not, again, familiar with the Santa Anas, they can come by here and rip roofs off of houses. They really go. So that tree was really doing quite well. That was a real tree. Now today they use fake ones. Every year they would bring giant cranes into the park, and they would put the Christmas star up on top of the Matterhorn. It was illuminated at night with electric lights on it, and as you can see, it rotated and gave a different look to the park. I don't know when they stopped it, but when I started in '76, I think it was sitting out next to the warehouse in the back of the park and wasn't being used anymore. Atlantic Richfield, this is the new Autopia over in Tomorrowland. And it's interesting, things we take for granted. Again, this was 1959. Over in Europe, they just announced all these icons for street signs for traffic circles, yield, median, that sort of thing. And it became viewed as very avant-garde, very futuristic. So what are you going to stick on your Tomorrowland Autopia, but all sorts of pictograms? And the submarine's a great addition to the park. They were styled, in theory, after the U.S. Nuclear fleet, the USS Nautilus being the first atomic submarine. And the guy here was quite enamored about the crystal clear water of the submarine lagoon. And up we go for a ride on the monorail. Like I said, all this was brand new. It only been open a couple months at this time. Now we're on the monorail, and down below on the parking lot, a bunch of bands are getting ready. You're gonna see it's gonna bounce up and down real good because the monorail was bouncing as it went over seam the track. But they would bring all these marching bands in, they'd give them a free ticket to the park, and then their families all come to watch them. Now, think about how many cars it is at 25 cents a car. Adds up, doesn't it? You can imagine how many people at the end of the day were left waiting for everybody else to leave so they could find their car. We used to have a tram, not a tram, but a little cart that would take people up and down row after row after row in the parking lot. Is that your car? Is that your car? Is that your car? And, helping them find it. There'd be people frantically calling, security, somebody stole my car. And they go out and look for it. Oh, sorry, that went over there. TWA rocket to the moon. Autopia. No center rails there. Get a real quick look at this end of it. Right there on all of the sign for the flying saucer ride, which I wish they had found taken some footage of the flying saucers, but they didn't do that. So let me get the next reel ready here. Okay, so we're gonna go into more of Disneyland. This time we're gonna jump up to, again, Christmas, 1962 at this point in time. Most of the shops and everything are pretty much the same way, but if you look at some of the signs, you'll see things in there for the Yale Lock Store and others that have changed over time. This I got a kick out of. This was the security host at this point in time. So, there's all the talk about back at Disneyland, back in the day I worked there, you couldn't have facial hair. And they said the only, there was a big joke about even Walt wouldn't be able to get hired because he had a mustache. Well, they did have some exceptions, and you can see this guy has a mustache here because he was playing an old-time, patrol officer, and at that point in time, a lot of those guys wore mustaches. So the security hosts that worked this particular detail were allowed to have mustaches, but he would not be able to work, say, a shift over in Frontierland because it wouldn't fit the costume. So today they all wear a generic outfit, but at that point in time, you had a costume for each of the lands. The security host or host, they didn't have hostesses at the time. The security hosts were all themed costume. And what is he trying to get pictures of here? Oh, we'll see in a second. The swans. The black swan, very hard to see up there. I was always wondering if a black swan and a white swan met, do you have gray swans? I don't know. But the swans were always a big part of the moat. And Cody mentioned Eisner and cost cutting. The swans were taken care of by an outside company. They came in, took care of the birds, gave them whatever medication they need, fed them, did that sort of thing. And literally, even when the days the park was closed, a little truck would show up and somebody would come out and feed the swans. Well, they decided that they would get rid of it and not pay for the swans anymore. And the excuse was, oh, it was for their safety because guests were misfeeding them. No, if they just didn't want to pay for it anymore.
Yeah, people would throw food at them. They'd eat it and then they'd get sick. And they weren't friendly.
No, they weren't friendly.
They weren't friendly.
They tried to say there was residue from the fireworks were bothering them. They said, oh, really? After 50 years? Oh, okay.
But yeah, they were hard to deal with. You had to go help them in some way. And I think they just finally said, forget it.
Yeah. Some of these were real dark. I did what I could to try to pull details out of the color, but you know, they don't end up looking like a Technicolor film by any stretch.
Do they still have that thing, or did they get rid of it?
What's that?
That star on the
No,
Matterhorn.
no, they haven't used that in about 45, 50 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, shots like this, Wayne, were kind of jittery as he was hand holding, and it does a really nice job of stabilizing it, gives it a sort of tripod look. Mark had a band performing there. This was super overexposed, so that's the best I could do for it. Then he must have realized he had misset the camera, because all of a sudden it gets better. But this was a gazebo in the Frontierland area facing towards the steamboat.
Oh. That outfit.
And we're out on the Indian War canoes, later renamed the Davy Crockett Explorer canoes.
Were the monorails different by, say, 1967, which was my first visit, because I don't remember those colors.
Yeah, they changed them quite a bit. They went through several different design iterations. I think they're on like the 5th or 7th design now, something like that. Again, super overexposed, did what I could to try to salvage some of it.
Some of those old monorail cars are actually running in Las Vegas now.
Did what? Oh, it went to
The
Vegas.
monorail
Yeah.
cars are now running in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think those came from Disney World. This is where Bear Country was built. Okay, let me get ready for the next one here. Okay. Nope, wrong window. I'll go back. Let's see, where did I stick it? 1 second here. I'm gonna go back to Disney World for a second. This was not one of this group of movies that I got in. This was one I had done that I redid, and let me just pop this up while I go look for the other film. This little kid in the green shirt. Okay, we're gonna go back to the recent batch of films, 1 second. Southern California.
Kind of wonder how many employees it takes to run that park.
Thousands and thousands. It is quite an operation. You know, besides all the things you see in these films are, you know, like the characters dancing down the street. That's great. Well, there's people that have to make those costumes, sew those costumes, clean those costumes, and then people that's got to schedule them, all that sort of thing. Meanwhile, in the back area, and they do offer tours of this when you go down to Disney World. They don't do it at Disneyland so much, but they offer tours of some of it. The Central Foods facility is absolutely humongous. I mean, it's just, you know, all the kitchens, the warehouses, the bakeries, it's really truly phenomenal. And then where's the all electricity come from? Oh, its own power plant. I mean, it's besides the number of people, it's like an iceberg. You see the tip of it out there running around, but there's so much backstage that is just crazy. So we're going to go to the LA County Fair. It's called a facility called Fairplex in Pomona, California. And this is a view from 1962. This is one I have not finished working on, but got it in enough shape for you for today. This monorail was brand new. It was introduced in 1962. Oh, here's an example, by the way. The computer is having trouble stabilizing, so the rotor blades are going out. So this is the unstabilized part, and it's not the right color correction stuff. But you could get a Bell helicopter ride, just like you used in MASH, around the ground. So this was a new monorail built by a company called American Crane and Hoist Company, and they were hoping to get into the monorail business. These monorail cars held 24 people. They went on a 1-mile track around the fairgrounds, and it was a really great idea. Except the fair is held in back at this time in September of every year, and it is an incredibly hot experience. They recently moved it to May of the year because as we've been having global warming, it just got to be unbearable out there in September. But these cars were not air conditioned, and the people wanted to go on it, but they decided that it was really just uncomfortable as could be. They also had all sorts of problems that they would break down. The electrical system would die, and then they had to bring the fire department in to get people off the monorail. So it was having all sorts of troubles. But they eventually got all the bugs worked out, ran for years, didn't have any particular problems other than they were uncomfortable as hell. So they had one accident in 1979 when one of the cars came loose and was dangling from the track, and they had to go and again rescue the people. In 1990, they did a $25 million renovation of the whole Fairplex complex and put in new 40-passenger cars, which were built by Aerodynamics, the same company that had done a lot of work for building rides at Disneyland. And these were air conditioned. The only trouble was nobody took into account the extra weight of the cars and the people, you know, going from 24 to 40 people, adding in the air conditioning. And all of a sudden, the monorail track started cracking and was being a problem. So lasted a whole 6 years, and they shut it down. The monorail system was scrapped. The cars went to China for use in a theme park that never opened because it went out of business. But it just reminded me of when they did rocket rides at Disneyland. They didn't take into account the extra workload on the track. This section here, boy, every ride in here is designed to spin you in circles, and I couldn't do this. I mean, I can do acrobatics on the plane. I could not do this sort of ride. There's one coming up in a second, which I've never seen before, which is really weird. We'll see that coming up. So now these women don't look too worse of the wear. I'd be staggered. Look at this one. You get to roll yourself around in these things, and there's some people going head over. Oh, I mean, so you go as quiet and sedately as you wanted, or you could roll yourself upside down. So let's get on another ride that spins you around. Pretty tame Ferris wheel. And funhouse mirror fun. And let's hope the monkey doesn't bite your fingers. And these are all 8mm films. Later in the collection, the guy stepped up to Super 8, and I was not able to restore it yet. He had a Super 8 film of the county fair in about 1972. They came out really, really nice. Oh, the chickens there. He must have shot 1.5 minutes of chickens, not realizing that his camera was focused on the wire of the cages and not of the chickens themselves. So it did not work the way he intended. We'll end up with one real quick one from the 64 World's Fair. Reel 39, gotta find you here.
The toddler looks like he's searching for something to pick up and put in his mouth.
Sorry, Wayne, I couldn't hear you with the music. You were saying
I
about
say the toddler looks like he's looking for something to pick up and put in his mouth.
Yeah, you know, you can definitely tell it's amateur photography. But I got a kick out of this. Again, we're going to see the Mold-O-Rama machines coming in. I posted it on the very beginning. It says an unknown stop. There's somebody in a Mold-O-Rama group that is got a very detailed history of where all these guys went, and he's trying to figure out exactly where this stop was and when. But he believes it was up in Michigan because the Hudson department store and some other clues. The dinosaurs definitely took their tour out there. And this is the part that the Mold-O-Rama group got a real kick out of coming up. Not the baby, we'll see more.
I take it the person that did this film is the one that added the music, right?
No, I added the music.
What? You added the music?
Mold-O-Rama. And then you get your dinosaur shoving down there and made of special dino plastics. Yeah, I just added the music because if you're just watching it, it's silent. Sometimes I'll add music, sometimes I won't. Depends on the whim of that particular day or night. I remember seeing the dinosaurs came back to Garden City, Long Island, which was about 8-10 miles from my house. Came back in about 1967, 68, something like that. And it was really cool to run over and see the old friends from the fair one last time.
So how they move those big dinosaurs around the country on a flatbed truck?
Flatbed trucks, yep. The dinosaurs, particularly the Brontosaurus neck was made to come off, so they could take it, put it inside a truck, take it over, and they had a whole whole routine of putting them all back together and getting them there. So they basically ran. They got to a town. I think the guys mentioned the schedule that they got into a town on a Wednesday, and they would have everything set up Thursday. The event would be open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They would take everything down Monday, drive to the next town Tuesday, get there Wednesday, start setting it up again. And they did it for about 5 years, and they went to quite a few towns. And this guy's got a really neat thing of where they went and how many days and stuff. And he's got a lot of newspaper ads. you know, like coming to Cotterville, the Sinclair dinosaurs, and then somebody else, oh, here's in Brettleville, you know, the dinosaurs are going to be whatever. So, he's been trying to retrace the entire path of it. And
I like to see a picture of it coming down the highway.
yeah, well, most of it they were taken down and what you call it, covered in tarps and that sort of thing. So coming down the highway, you wouldn't have seen too much. When they took them to the fair, though, they came from a small town up on the Hudson River, and they arranged a really great, spectacular stunt. Was they put flatbed floats out on barges out on the river, and they put the dinosaurs with the T-Rex fully erect and everything. And they announced to everybody that tomorrow New York's going to be invaded by dinosaurs. And they took them down, came down the Hudson River, and they had to go around the tip of Manhattan and up over to take them up to Queens. And literally every school took their kids out to go see the dinosaurs come into town. The newspapers all covered it. It was a giant event. Got on all the news stations that night and all the newspapers. So it was tremendous publicity for Sinclair for their exhibit for the fair and for for the fair in general. But yeah, it was a great thing. Like prehistoric, this warning is presented as a civic service that tomorrow New York is going to be invaded by prehistoric creatures. I mean, they were very clever with it. The film I have, if anybody's a model railroad enthusiast, they have a very large model train set at Fairplex. And the Super 8 film that I was not able to restore yet has some incredible footage of the train set out there. So I'm going to work on that and try to have that. But I mean, the guy that did it was apparently into model railroads. I mean, and his footage looks really good. At some point, the railroad is so well done, it looks like a real train going down. And all of a sudden, it pulls back and you see it. But yeah, for my $40 investment, I was rather pleased. I also have some other reels I have to do. This one was a whole bunch of nonsense, and then all of a sudden, not shows up. This one was a lot of blank film. I don't know what he thought he was doing, but Hollywood Boulevard at night, decorated for Christmas. And then kind of interesting, he pops into somebody's house, probably his own, showing the Christmas decorations, and then decides he's going to immortalize the Rose Parade by filming his TV set. And there's President Eisenhower coming down as the Grand Marshal. So it was January 2nd, 1964. But back then, if that was the way you wanted to immortalize something, there was no VCRs. You wanted to get a picture of the Rose Parade, you took it off the TV set. So, like I said, for my big $40 investment, I was very, very happy with it. So, well, I hope that got you out of the heat for a little while today.
Yeah.
Bill, I wanted to quickly mention one thing. You were talking about the Disneyland parking lot and how people would take them around to find their cars. I can't remember who told me this, but it was somebody who worked there years ago when I was working at Disney. They said they had a person one night when they came out of the park. Not only could they not find their car, they didn't even know what kind of car it was other than it was yellow. It's a yellow car. They didn't know if it was a Ford or a Chevy or whatever. It's like, how do you not know what kind of car you have? And they were going all around the parking lot and they found a couple of yellow cars, whatever the color was. I think it was yellow. And he said, no, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's it. They said, well, do you have your keys so we can try it? Well, he pulls out his keys and on the key it says Pontiac. He never thought of looking at his key to see what type of car. Sure enough, oh, that's a Pontiac. Okay, so that's your car.
Well, the day you press your key fob and see what beeps and lights up.
Yeah.
These days,
I was out there one time and I parked my car in that gigantic parking lot and went in and came out and I could not find the car. I went all over the place and finally I was in tears. So at the time they had buildings there with people in there for different things. And I walked up to a guy sitting in one of those little buildings and I blubbered and he was real nice and he called somebody, but they never came. So I called my husband and he came out and drove me around. I found it and we left. But, I thought, hopefully I'll never see this employee of Disneyland ever again. and I used to work for the Disney stores. And 2 weeks later, guess who walked in the Del Amo Disney store? Was that employee. He was real nice. It was embarrassing, but he was lovely about it when it happened at the time and 2 weeks later. But it was just God.
You know, if you can't find your car, you wait long enough for everybody to leave you and see what's left on the lot.
I did know what kind of car it was, but that story sounds like me because I bought a car. It was white and I parked it in a parking lot over by the library. And I went to a white car, looked very similar. And I was trying to get the key to go in the door. And a woman walks up and she says, I think this is my car.
Well,
And I was trying to get into a Mercedes Benz when I had a Hyundai.
yeah, I don't think field upgrades are allowable.
I was just upgrading, and that's that. I can relate to that. What kind of car you have? I don't know.
Carol may get a kick out of this. We were in Tennessee and we were taking a trip. Our son went to school in Tennessee, and every year we would go back and drop him off. Then we would take a drive somewhere around. So we went into some country store in a little town, and they had some sign outside about some peach pie or something. So we went in, had a piece of pie, came out, and I'm getting in the car, and I look over, and Carol is very happily getting into the car next to us. It was my white rental car, her white rental car, and I looked over and said, "I'm over here," and she was, "Oh my God." And she came over, and the people were coming out of the restaurant, and they were like, "What's going on?" I said, "Made a mistake, made a mistake." It was very funny. But you know what happened, Brock, with your parking lot? I talked to people they would do that a lot. What kind of car did you have? White. What model was it? It's an Avis.
It's an Avis.
Car. They had no idea what kind of car they had driven. So yeah.
Yeah, well, this guy, apparently it was his car he owned, but he had no idea what make of the car was. I bought a yellow car because I like yellow cars. So it's like, okay. He lost it at Disneyland.
I would say he had too much to drink, but at the time, Disneyland didn't have any drinks.
No.
Well, you mentioned about
Except
the key fob. About 3 weeks ago, we were on patrol, and we've been going into the local park near here and looking into cars because people leave purses and wallets and all that sort of thing. We leave them a little note. That's smart to do. And we pulled in, and these people like, "Oh, you got here so quick." And I said, "For what?" And so our car's been stolen. We're in the hold with 911. They had gone to the park, dropped their car keys somewhere as they were hiking. When they got back to the parking lot, there's the car and no keys. So they said, "Well, we must have dropped them somewhere on the trail." They traced their path, couldn't find the keys, came back, and the car was gone. Somebody had been hiking up in the park, found the car keys, went into the parking lot, oh, that's one. They got in the car and drove off on it. So, yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Luckily, the woman, the first language was not English, but I heard her mention the word AirTag, and I got her to show me her phone, and I was able to get on the radio with dispatch and said, "Okay, the stolen car is 2 blocks away. It's on Longfellow Place. Oh, it just made a right-hand turn onto Boswell. Oh, it's come back. It's parked now." And 15 minutes later, we had our car back for her. So I keep telling everybody, buy AirTags. I do not own stock in Apple, but buy AirTags. But yeah, somebody comes and finds the keys. They only lived 2.5 blocks away, but they stole the car to drive there. It's what a world.
I had a couple of colleagues who went on a business trip to Motorola in Phoenix. So they parked their white rental car in a huge lot. And when the meetings were over, they went out, got in the car, started it up, drove to the motel, and opened up the trunk, and their luggage is missing.
What was in it?
Their luggage was missing.
Oh.
Well, it turns out that
Wasn't their
it
car.
was a identical white rental car and the keys also matched. And they quickly drove back to Motorola and found their rental car and left the one they took by mistake.
My God.
I have, if you want to hear two real quick rental car stories, when I worked for GE, we would go to the Charles S. Draper Lab at MIT over in Boston, actually in Cambridge. And we went over there and sitting for breakfast, and there were about four of us. And a guy came in and said, "Any of you guys, used the car last night?" "No." "Well, why?" "Because it's not in the parking lot. I went to go get something." So we had to go to, I think it was Avis, and said somebody stole the car. So they gave us another one, and the next morning we came down to breakfast, and the guy said, "No, but none of you guys took the car." "Nope, it had been stolen again." Had to go to Avis. They gave us another car. The next morning we get up and the car is gone, and this is no joke. The car got stolen out of the motel parking lot 3 days in a row, and Avis finally said, "We're not going to give you any more cars." Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a crime-ridden place. 3 days in a row, we came out and somebody had stolen the rental car. But another time, when I was working for a digital equipment corporation, we had to go to the Saturn assembly plant in Tennessee. So we flew in to this airport, and it was, and I'm saying, boy, it's a tiny little airport. And the plane takes off and leaves, and my partner and I are there, and this is there's an old dog laying in the shade under a window on the wing of an old DC-3 that somebody's pounding on a hammer. We walk into the airport to the rental car thing, and we go sign all the paperwork and everything. And the guy says, "Okay, can I help you?" I said, "Yeah." "In the morning, how do we get to the Saturn assembly plant?" And he looks at like us, we're from Mars. And he said, "Why would you come here to go to the Saturn plant?" Well, it turned out the Saturn plant was on one side of the state. On our travel agency, it sent us and booked us to another airport and hotel on the opposite other side of the state. So, I mean, now the entire width of Tennessee. So we say, "Oh God, we have to get over there, And he goes, "Well, not with this car. This car is brand new. I mean, if you take it over there, I'll never see it again." "Well, how do we get there?" And he finally agrees to give us some old crappy loaner, beat up car and everything. So Kathy and I put all our luggage in the car. We drive across the entire state of Tennessee. We get to the hotel, and I go to open up the trunk and realize the key won't go into the trunk. And I realized I have two sets of Avis keys. I had the key for his car, his brand new car he didn't want it to use, and the one he had taken. So I had to call him up. Why was he hopping mad? He says he had thought about reporting us for stealing his car. And I said, "Well, why did he steal the keys?" So I had to FedEx the keys back to him. But I think we've all gone through rental car hell at some point in time. But it was a pleasant drive. So next week I'm planning on I have 8 reels of footage from the '64 World's Fair, mostly taken during the first 1 to 2 months of the fair. So we ought to see it when it was all brand new and sparkling clean and that sort of thing. So Tom Brooks, before I forget, I've not been able to make your Thursday chats for the last couple of weeks. Been super busy, but if you would send me the link again for next week, I will try to join you guys.
Sure. I haven't made the last two either. We had last week, the kids from Napa were here, and then the week before that was something too. So yeah.
I
So
thought
we're
maybe
both bad.
I thought maybe you were working an extra 2 jobs or so to be able to afford that lot of Disneyland records.
Oh, wasn't that funny? Oh my gosh.
For people that don't know it, Tom posted a link that he found of about 10 Disneyland records, which are not particularly uncommon ones.
Yeah,
mean,
really common.
They're
Yeah.
really common. And the opening bid is only $10,600 plus shipping.
Yeah.
I was looking at that and said, how many digits, decimal places is that guy off?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah. They were like $2 records for
$10,000.
10,000.
Yeah.
Hey,
The other funny thing that keeps happening is people post laser discs and they think they're records, and that cracks me up too. It's like,
What are you gonna play them on?
uh-huh.
You know, I have a Laserdisc player I haven't plugged in about 10 years. I wonder if it still works or not.
Yeah, it'll work. Yeah.
Well, you hope,
Right.
you know, sometimes the capacitors and stuff go out in consumer electronics, so it's,
True.
yeah, you don't know.
But
But,
that's an easy fix, you know. So.
yeah, in my spare time.
Yeah, right.
Didn't some of the laser discs go bad, Bill?
Yeah,
Yeah, some of them rot.
yeah, the laser discs were made for two separate sides, and then they glued them together, and they found out the hard way that the glue that was holding them together would eat away the aluminum substrate that the laser signals bounced off of. So they had a whole bunch of them that did go bad, and it was really frustrating. You have a really neat looking you know, laser disc. You stick it in there, and it would just be garbage. And then they
Yeah.
started tracking down that, oh, this one plant at this one period of time used this type of glue, and it was really a mess. But they looked fine on the surface. And then
Yeah.
later, as they got really bad, then you could look at it and see that the aluminum was starting to just, I mean, it literally would eat it away.
Yeah.
But you know,
Somebody posted up, it's called delamination, and it's also
yeah,
called laser rot.
well, yeah. What was fun back during the days of the lasers was that you first came up with they had the one-sided discs that were I forget what now they call it, constant angular velocity, and the other was constant linear velocity. But they would sell a one-sided disc of an hour's worth of stuff, and then on the other side they would have a disc that was just an image of a turtle lying in its back, saying
Oh,
"Turn
yeah.
over." Well, people started realizing it so they stopped making turtle discs, and they would just have ones that wouldn't play. And people realized that they had put some film over it, that if you wiped off this film, you could sometimes find really weird stuff. At times, also because they had to take these discs
Oh.
together, you would end up with side A of this disc with side B of that disc that somebody in the factory had glued together. So people would always be announcing they had, you know, gone home, they had taken side one of Pinocchio and side two of Debbie Does Dallas or something. So, you know, it's just weird stuff in the Laserdisc days.
Yeah. I have thousands of those things.
Yeah, I still, you know, I still have a couple that again I haven't used in years, but I bought a whole set of them from the National Air Space Museum that were collections of historical photos, because you could go through them one at a time. They could stick 10,000 photos on a laser disc, and you know, they had just digitized massive amount of their collection and put them out there. And a couple of, and then some of the Disney discs they never took some of the special features, like I think was on the Pinocchio or Fantasia. They never released some of that stuff on video other than on a laser disc. So I'll have to pull it out and see if it works. These days, you have to even find a TV set that has you know, RCA inputs to make them work. You know, no HDMI in those laser discs. What did you do with all yours, Tom?
Tom's
Some
disappeared.
of them I sold. Yeah, I took like most of the classical ones and sold them and made somewhere around $7,000.
Oh.
And the rest of them are just like either alphabetized or they're grouped by Disney, and then I have a whole ton of groups, you know, musical groups. So the Beatles, you know, and some of them are kind of really, you know, not AC/DC or the rain, you know, what's it called, Ranger or something, whatever. I can't remember, but I think those are all worth quite a bit. The musical groups,
Right.
and then there's a bunch of travel ones, like so it's like La Familia, you know, uh, the church in Barcelona.
Oh,
It's like the making of it.
right.
And of course, it's not quite done even yet, so but it's kind of fun. There's some nature and all, but yeah, I bought some racks at Costco, and I've just kind of organized them all on those racks, you know, and so if I want one, I pull it out and grab it and play it. And I've only ever had one that had that, you know, lamination. And it was a James Bond movie, but so far all the rest of them have been playing fine. But some of them are really cool, like Leonard Bernstein, um, and then like what you were leading into, there's some of the Disney ones that have the story of like Tchaikovsky, and it shows him when he created Sleeping Beauty, coming across the ocean and how he just hated it and was very unsatisfied with how it was turning out. And Ivan Earl, the famous Ford tree, where, the artists got together and drew a tree. Do you remember that story?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, 4 hours paint a tree, right?
Yeah, that's on there. And yeah, there's lots and lots of stuff that they've dug up for these laser discs that you don't.
Well, I
Oh,
was going to Japan fairly often during the time those things were, in their
oh
heyday.
yeah,
And
Song
they
of the
saw
South.
a lot of them over there that they didn't sell over here. And Tony Baxter, who a bunch of you may know from Disney, would send me a want list. And I said, okay, I'll make you a deal. I'll bring these back, but I get to watch them before I give them to you. Because if you get I'll tell you from experience, you go over with a suitcase and you put 30 laser discs in that suitcase to bring it back. It's much heavier coming back than it was going over. But they had all sorts of ones that, like I remember one of the ones he wanted to see was First Men in the Moon. And I brought that back and he was like begging me to finish watching it because he was, so anxious to see it. So
Which one?
First Men in the Moon.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. And there were all sorts of, neat ones. I mean, they were doing all sorts of TV shows that never came out on Laserdisc here in the United States, like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea or some others. And you could go and buy them over, but again, they were fairly expensive and they were fairly heavy. So I would come back. Luckily, I was generally flying first class, and if your suitcase was over the limit, they would not give you a hard time. But every now and then, the people in customs would say, like, "What are these things?" I mean, they had never seen them, and they were heavy. It's Tom can attest to. So, but yeah, ended up with a whole bunch of really neat Japanese, and the Japanese disc would come with really neat booklets that you couldn't figure out what they were saying, but all these great pictures and other ones in it. So, well, appreciate folks joining. Next week again, we'll be going back to the 64 fair, and now that I finally, I think, have figured out my methodology, boy, did I go through. It's so frustrating when you take something and then it works, and okay, I finally get it out of the video exporting program. Oh, the codec used for that is not compatible with the video editing program. Back to the drawing board. So, by the way, Brock, before I forget, did you get a chance to look at any of the Disneyland pictures?
Unfortunately, I haven't yet. I'm going to. I've got them right beside the computer here. I was going to try to look at them today. I've been working on another project. And I did want to ask you real quickly, is there a particular day of the week that's better to contact you about that issue I have with my Photoshop running so slow? Because I think it's got a bunch of, temp files or something. I don't know what's causing it, but it just keeps slowing down more and more.
Yeah,
on me.
Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are usually better for me. I generally do control. Not this week. I'm doing training some new people on Thursday, so I should be around Tuesday and Wednesday. But I generally do patrol Mondays and Fridays.
Okay, and I don't know if I have your phone number. You've got my email. You can email it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know if I put it on here, I'll start getting spam calls over the internet.
From people who want to sell laser discs at it.
Yeah. So, no, and Rich, I see you. Thanks for going up to camp. I see you guys had a successful adventure up there.
Yeah, we in fact went through all of the trails probably a day earlier, finished a day earlier than had planned. So I left Thursday, and in fact, I went up there yesterday because I'm trying to get an increasing amount of pollination plants that are up there by the admin house. So I was working up there yesterday. It was 10 degrees cooler maybe up there, but it was still kind of brutal.
Yeah. It's interesting. The camp we were at, they've been doing a project for the last, I don't know, 10 years or so. trying to cut down beach trees, which are considered an invasive species. And they put out so much shade that it would shade, crowding out other stuff. Well, Steve Scholl told me now there's a disease that's come in that's killing all the beach trees. And I guess they're saying in Connecticut they won't have a beach tree left in 2-3 years, and it's working its way up. So Steve was saying, ironically, we've been, Richard and these guys been going diligently chopping down beach trees for 10 years, and now within 3 years the beach trees will probably all be gone. So it's a never-ending battle up there, isn't it?
Well, you see the things that are epidemics or blights or whatever move over time. So
Yeah.
we didn't used to have ticks up there, and now we've got an awful lot of ticks. And we say that there's not poison ivy up there, but it's just a matter of time. And oddly enough, if one of these things gets in the cuff of your pants, you bring it back to Long Island. I found 2 ticks on me here in New Jersey a day after I left up there.
Yeah, it's yeah, as you say, this stuff clings on to you and goes around. By the way, real quick, were you up there? I think it was 2 weeks ago, guys were up there, and Jim Van Tassel posted a whole bunch of pictures of people outside his trailer enjoying a barbecue and everything. And I got this very panicked call from the council office the next day that everybody's Steve's there cooking some hamburgers and everybody's looking really good. And right smack dab in the front of the picture, as close as you can get to the camera, is a Coors bottle. And it's like no alcohol at the Boy Scout camp. So Jim took the picture down. But I mean, they really appreciate everybody's work, and it was interesting. They didn't say don't drink beer at the Boy Scout camp. They said we don't want to see pictures of people drinking beer at the Boy Scout camp. So we all know now how the marching orders are set to go. So well, great. Brent, what you call it? Last week when Brock and I were at lunch, we ran into what was the guy that did the talk for you guys? Oh goodness, I'm terrible on names. Talked about soaring over California for you guys.
Yes.
Anyway, he said to say hi next time I saw you. So hi.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
senior moment on his name. So
I can't remember either, but it was a fascinating guy. And one of
Mark?
his interesting units of his talk was entitled Talking to Aliens. It was about how to discuss engineering to non-engineering people. And one of the items, I believe it was the Haunted Mansion. They needed new doors. I think it was on the elevators. I'm not sure because I'm not familiar with that. And they brought in new doors and they were big enough, but they weren't strong enough and they weren't working, and I think they were distorting. And the lawyers were going to come and they were going to talk with the lawyers. So he thought, how do I express to the lawyers the difference between being strong enough and being big enough? And he came up with the idea of using 2 of these tongue depressors or popsicle sticks, whatever you call it. And he did demonstration 1. Imagine he's got these 2 popsicle sticks, and they're not glued together. They're just sitting on top of each other. And he says, you press down on them and notice how much they bend. Then he had 2 popsicle sticks that were glued together. And he said, now the same thickness, but you try to press on them and they're a lot stronger and they don't bend. And the lawyers got it. And as they were leaving, one of the lawyers said, can I have those popsicle sticks? So that he could take that back. The other was on the entrance to Soarin'. You wanted the people to walk in on a level, but you then wanted it to change so that it was 3 levels, so that it were, 3 levels of people packed up, and they could all see the same thing without having to look over all those shoulders in front of them. And he thought about, on the weekend, he came up with a plan, how it could work. And he thought, well, how can I explain this to the rest of the team who are not engineers? And what he decided to do was go get out his old erector set and make a model. And then when he took it in on Monday, he said, here, you've got them here. And when the people are all sitting down, it moves and bends like this, and you've got your 3 levels.
That's neat.
So
By the way, I think his name was Mark Summers. That ring a bell?
Okay.
Not the guy who was on the Nickelodeon sliming shows. So anyway,
Yeah.
he's to say hi and
Okay, good. Yeah, tell him I still remember his
I'll tell him that.
presentation, and then I told you about talking with aliens.
I will mention that to him when we see him next. We'll see you
Okay.
folks next week. I hope everybody stays relatively cool. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Bill.
Bye-bye.
See you next week. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.